Suplex City, the Beast Incarnate, the Conqueror. For over 2 decades, the story has been simple. Brock Lesnar isn't normal. He's a genetic freak, a once-in-a-lifetime athlete who just showed up, ready to dominate. We saw him end the Undertaker's streak. We saw him dismantle John Cena. And we've seen him reign over WWE like a final boss. He's a main event certainty, a guaranteed spectacle. His legend is written in the brightest lights on the biggest stages. But what if I told you the beast you know is a polished product? That the monster we see today is just the final draft of a story written in blood, sweat, and obscurity? What if the real, untamed animal was forged not in the main event of WrestleMania, but in forgotten brawls in tiny arenas, in controversial wars overseas, and in real fights that permanently changed who he is as a performer? Everyone knows the champion, but very few know the journey. Today, we unearth the chapters they don't talk about. We expose the greatest Brock Lesnar matches you never knew about. Before the private jets and the million-dollar contracts, there was a different Brock Lesnar. This was a young man fresh off a dominant amateur wrestling career, culminating in him becoming the NCAA Division I heavyweight champion in 2000. When he signed with the World Wrestling Federation, they knew they had a rare physical specimen. But raw talent isn't enough. Every legend has a starting point. And for Lesnar, that point was a gritty, unglamorous warehouse in Louisville, Kentucky, Ohio Valley Wrestling. OVW wasn't the slick performance center of today. It was a baptism by fire, a place where future gods of the industry learned how to grind. This was the proving ground for what many call the greatest developmental class in history: Randy Orton, John Cena, Shelton Benjamin, and of course, Batista. But even in a room full of future Hall of Famers, Lesnar was different. He was paired with his college roommate, the equally athletic Shelton Benjamin, in a tag team called the Minnesota Stretching Crew. They were a terrifying mix of amateur wrestling and raw power, capturing the OVW Southern Tag Team Championship 3 times. You can still find grainy footage of them defending those titles against a prototype version of John Cena, a wild glimpse of rivalries that would one day define an era. But it was in singles competition that the first sketches of the Beast really started to appear. And no match from this era is more prophetic than a forgotten clash from late 2001. His opponent was a hulking monster known as Leviathan. We know him today as Batista. Imagine the scene. No pyro, no giant screens. Just a small, packed arena, watching 2 future multi-time world champions beat the hell out of each other before anyone really knew their names. This wasn't some technical masterpiece. It was a brawl. It was 2 immense forces of nature colliding. A raw and unfiltered preview of the Haas fights that would define a generation. Lesnar was already using his explosive suplexes, moving with an impossible speed for his size. Leviathan was the powerhouse, trying to ground the explosive rookie. The match ended in interference, a classic developmental finish to protect both rising stars. But the result didn't matter. What mattered was the statement. Here, in the obscurity of OVW, was the blueprint for the beast versus the animal, a rivalry that would sell out arenas years later. It was a fight that proved, long before he was a household name, that Brock Lesnar wasn't just another big man. He was an apex predator in the making. After arguably the greatest rookie year in WWE history, winning King of the Ring, beating The Rock at SummerSlam to become the youngest WWE champion at the time, and winning the Royal Rumble, Lesnar's rise seemed unstoppable. But the brutal WWE travel schedule wore on him. In 2004, just 2 years into his legendary run, he quit. His departure was messy, sparking a bitter legal battle with WWE over a no-compete clause. But Lesnar, always a fighter, challenged the clause in court. While the legal war raged, he set his sights on a new territory: Japan. In 2005, he signed with New Japan Pro Wrestling, a move that sent shockwaves through the industry. To the Japanese faithful, he wasn't a celebrated rookie. He was a controversial outsider, a gaijin who had abandoned the biggest company in the world. He had to prove himself all over again. He didn't waste any time. His very first match was on October 8, 2005, inside the legendary Tokyo Dome. And he wasn't given a warm-up. He was thrown into a three-way match for the company's most prestigious prize, the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. His opponents were the champion, Kazuyuki Fujita, and the veteran Masahiro Chono. To the shock of many, Lesnar won. On his very first night, the controversial outsider had conquered New Japan's highest peak. This led to one of the most fascinating what-if matches in modern wrestling history. On January 4, 2006, at New Japan's biggest show of the year, Lesnar defended his title against a rising star with a captivatingly vicious style. His name was Shinsuke Nakamura. Today we know Nakamura as the king of strong style, but back then, he was a young lion tasked with slaying the invading beast. The match was a clash of philosophies, Lesnar's raw power against Nakamura's unorthodox kicks. The story has become legendary. Lesnar was reportedly disengaged, a mercenary just there for a paycheck. Nakamura, on the other hand, was fighting for the honor of his home promotion. Lesnar won, but as Nakamura himself has recounted, he felt so completely outmatched that he went backstage and cried in frustration. He felt he had faced something that wasn't just a wrestler, but a different species of animal altogether. Lesnar's reign in Japan ended as controversially as it began. In July 2006, New Japan stripped him of the IWGP Championship, citing visa issues. But there was one problem. Lesnar still had the physical belt. He never lost it. So while New Japan crowned a new champion, Lesnar declared himself the original IWGP champion. This led to one final, utterly bizarre dream match. On June 29, 2007, for a new promotion founded by wrestling legend Antonio Inoki, a historic match was set. The official IWGP heavyweight champion, Kurt Angle, would face the unbeaten IWGP champion, Brock Lesnar. It was a surreal moment. Two of WWE's greatest rivals fighting over a Japanese championship in a completely different promotion. In a technical classic that showcased their incredible chemistry, Angle finally made Lesnar tap out, bringing a strange and often overlooked chapter of Lesnar's career to a close. This journey through Lesnar's hidden past shows just how deep his story goes, from the warehouses of Kentucky to the domes of Tokyo. These are the foundational battles that are almost never spoken of. If you're enjoying uncovering these forgotten chapters and want more wrestling stories that go beyond the surface, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. It helps us keep digging for these hidden gems. Lesnar's journey in Japan had ended, but his quest for legitimate combat was just beginning. He wasn't just playing a fighter anymore, he was going to become one. Leaving the predetermined world of pro wrestling behind, he stepped into the most unforgiving proving ground on the planet, the Ultimate Fighting Championship. His first professional fight was actually outside the UFC, a quick victory over Min Soo Kim in 2007. His UFC debut at UFC 81 on February 2, 2008, however, was a brutal reality check. His opponent was Frank Mir, a dangerous submission specialist. For the first minute, it looked like a classic Lesnar mauling. He took Mir down and began raining down punches. But in his aggression, he made a rookie mistake. Mir, a jiu-jitsu black belt, weathered the storm and locked in a knee bar. Lesnar tapped out in just 90 seconds. The doubters were ecstatic. The pro wrestler had failed. But what critics saw as failure, Lesnar saw as data. That humbling loss became the single most important motivator of his career. He returned to the gym with a new focus, and in his next fight, he dominated veteran Heath Herring. This set the stage for a title shot that many felt was undeserved. At UFC 91, in only his fourth professional MMA fight, he faced the legendary Randy the Natural Couture for the UFC Heavyweight Championship. In a stunning display of power, Lesnar stopped the legend in the second round. The fake fighter was now the baddest man on the planet. He would go on to avenge his loss to Frank Mir in dominant fashion. But the single greatest and most overlooked fight of his career, the one that truly defines the Beast we know today, was his title defense at UFC 116 against Shane Carwin. To understand this fight, you have to understand the monster that was Shane Carwin. Carwin was an undefeated wrecking machine with 12 first-round finishes. He was a Val's heavyweight, with some of the most feared hands in the sport. He was, for all intents and purposes, a real-life Brock Lesnar. When the bell rang, it was a disaster for Lesnar. Carwin caught him with a massive uppercut that put him on shaky legs. For the next 4 minutes, Lesnar endured a level of punishment that would have ended any other fighter. Carwin unleashed a furious ground-and-pound assault, landing dozens of unanswered shots. Lesnar was bloody, dazed, and turtled up on the canvas. The referee was moments from stopping the fight. The invincible aura of Brock Lesnar was being publicly shattered. But the stoppage never came. The bell rang, ending one of the most one-sided rounds in UFC title history. As Lesnar walked back to his corner, a bloody and swollen mess, something incredible had happened. He had survived. He had taken the best shots from the most fearsome puncher in the division and was still there. When the second round began, Carwin was exhausted. Lesnar, sensing his moment, shot in for a takedown. What happened next shocked the world. Lesnar, the brawler, transitioned beautifully on the ground and locked in a tight arm triangle choke. Carwin, the undefeated monster, tapped out. Brock Lesnar had survived an apocalypse and won via submission. This wasn't a wrestling storyline. This was real. He had shown a chin made of granite and the heart of a champion. This fight, more than any suplex or F5, is the true origin story of the Beast Incarnate. After his UFC career was cut short by a debilitating battle with diverticulitis, Brock Lesnar made a shocking return to WWE in 2012. But the man who walked down that ramp to confront John Cena was not the same man who had left 8 years earlier. The prodigy was gone. In his place stood something far more terrifying. The Lesnar who returned was a perfect, horrifying combination of every chapter of his forgotten journey. He carried the raw power he first displayed in OVW, the menacing aura of a monster Gaijin heel he perfected in Japan, and the undeniable legitimacy he earned in the Octagon. The lessons from his battles with Mir, Couture, and especially Carwin had been absorbed into his very being. His in-ring style was reborn. The complex wrestling sequences of his first run were replaced by a brutal MMA-infused style of ground and pound, vicious elbows, and a real sense of danger. His matches were no longer presented as athletic contests. They were fights for survival. When he bounced on his toes, it wasn't a wrestler's stance, it was a fighter's. When he took an opponent down, the goal wasn't a pinfall, it was annihilation. This new, realer version of Lesnar was the one who finally broke The Undertaker's WrestleMania streak, a feat that required absolute credibility. This was the Lesnar who took John Cena to Suplex City, delivering 16 suplexes in a championship match that felt more like an assault than a competition. Those forgotten matches were no longer forgotten. They were the subtext to every move he made. The brawl with Leviathan taught him how to be a monster. The conquest of Japan taught him how to be a villain. And surviving Shane Carwin's onslaught taught him how to be indestructible. Everyone knows Brock Lesnar, the main event attraction, the Beast Incarnate. But now, you know the truth. The Beast wasn't born in a WWE ring, fully formed and ready for glory. He was forged, piece by painful piece, in the fires of obscurity. The next time you see Brock Lesnar walk to the ring, remember the journey. Remember the forgotten brawls, the overseas battles, and the real-life fights that created the blueprint for the most dominant athlete in combat sports history. What other forgotten Lesnar matches do you think defined him? Is there a hidden gem we missed? Let us know in the comments below. And for more deep dives into the wrestling stories you thought you knew, make sure to subscribe. Until next time.